Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. So my name is Carlos, and yeah, this is productbooklab.com. We meet once a month. On December we didn't meet, but yeah, we meet once a month. We discuss about one book, usually with product managers, and then the goal is just to share learnings, insights, see what we like, we didn't like from the book. Sometimes the authors join. For today, I contact Michael, who is the author, but he couldn't join, so he's not joining today. And then, yeah, on February, we also have another one scheduled for managing stress, I believe is the name of the book. There, we have confirmed with the author, so Mark, he's joining then. And yeah, that's it. Maybe we usually start also with like if we are not that many, we can start just like everyone start sharing their main insights from the book. If someone hasn't read the book or hasn't finished reading it, then it's also okay if you just want to listen. But yeah, I gonna start. My name is Carlos. I work right now as a senior product manager at Booking.com here in Amsterdam. I read the book quite a couple of years ago, I think, and then I read it now as well for this meeting, of course. As I mentioned, I'm changing jobs in March, so I also was like taking a lot of notes to see what I can apply, and I really liked it. I think it is sort of like written more for like I don't know, like very high level chief people or something. Seems like a lot of emphasis on like politics and making alliances and those things. But overall, I like it. I think I like that there are some examples of, for example, what kind of questions to ask at the beginning, what you should discuss with your manager, how can you secure early wins, etc. So yeah, I definitely found some useful insights from it. I don't know if someone else wants to go.
I completely agree with the fact. I got that impression as well. I felt like maybe it was written for like corporate environment manager / director level that is entering with a lot of people, and so I did get that impression as well. But I also I haven't finished the book, to be honest. I'm somewhere halfway. I basically just started the new job, so basically this was like a hand in hand happening, and I was trying to read up, but the job was a bit overwhelming, to be honest. But I felt like I did experience a couple of things from those notes, like some of those. I mean, early on in the chapters, he talks about like doing the right things and accelerating your learning and securing early wins. And I actually I identified a lot with that since I actually experienced a couple of those things, like securing the early win. I felt like there was a moment where like I was asked to prepare something and I prepared it and everybody liked it. So I felt like that was like really important, like basically setting your foot in the company and kind of establishing that trust, that impact. So I did like that part. And basically a couple of other things is basically I think one important thing is he talks about keeping your balance. So I think it's really important to kind of take your time to get up to speed, but at the same time try to start making progress towards what your kind of mandate is. I think that's a very delicate balance, because it's very easy to kind of drown in the operational and jump into like do execution mode and then burn out really quickly, because or maybe go in the wrong direction because you don't have the context yet. So yeah, that's kind of my impression. I'll leave the floor to somebody else if they like.
So I'm a front-end developer. I'm not a product manager, and I read the book recently. I haven't finished it. I'm still reading the last chapter. I really like the book. All the book is almost about soft skills. So usually I read books about programming and development. And here I found the book very useful, especially if I would like to switch teams or companies, or especially if I would like to grow. And there are a lot of things that I need to do, like talk with a lot of people, and talk with my boss, talk with peers. And I was actually thinking, is there actually time to work on other things except talking with other people? So this kind of one question that I actually had, because I'm pretty sure that you're going to spend a lot of time if you're going to do everything by that book, like to talk with everybody all the time. I'm not sure, Carlos, as you work as product manager, do you talk a lot with your peers? Do you talk a lot with what's happening in other parts of the company?
I personally, yes, I think I spend a lot of time, maybe formally and informally, talking with people. I think maybe before, of course, before COVID, it was easier, like at lunch or drink, or with drinks to catch up. But I agree. Sometimes you can spend a lot of time, but I have found it quite useful in general. Like when jumping to new topics, especially if you're like, again, for the other ones that have joined maybe a bit later. I work at Booking, so we have a lot of teams, a lot of things going on, and a lot of things being developed, sometimes even in parallel. So it has helped me to know people and just know, what other things are happening at the company when I take on a new topic, because I know like, okay, Timur is working on this, so then maybe it's good to catch up or to ask him specific things, right? So I do have found that the value of that he mentions that, just getting to know your peers besides your team, right? So yeah, nice. So
Yeah,
someone else would like to share?
I agree with that point. The man he mentions, like, it's not just the vertical, it's horizontal as well.
Yeah.
I can go next.
Brings like, sorry. I like that it kind of structures all the motions that happen during the transitions, and I actually like the part about like kind of the politics, because like for example, for me, I'm very action oriented, so like to me sometimes it seems like, oh, the decision is obvious, like here's the data, here, like let's do it, but then some people might have their own agendas and so on, so like this kind of advice to be a bit more subtle, I think that's really nice. And I really like the stars that assess
the framework. Yeah.
Yes, like because I never thought I never thought in those terms, and it's really nice to kind of, it brings you to the different level of assessing the organization. What does it need at this moment?
Yeah.
And I loved one phrase that was in fact, the key to sustaining success often lies in continuously starting up, accelerating, and realigning parts of the business. So like, kind of like in any case, some parts of the organization will be in transition. So, like one of the last things where it talks about accelerating everybody, right? So like to identify the organization itself, what kind of transitions are happening. That's also very valuable to kind of bring this to a higher level. So yeah, really insightful book.
Yeah, nice, thanks. Akash, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone, I'm Akash. Pretty much the takeaways that I had resonated with, most of you have already covered, specifically the STARS approach. I know that, STARS stands for like different scenarios, and I still have to go through some of them. But at least the ones that I've already been through, reading the book sort of put that into context, which means I know that at least the next time I'm picking up a new team or transitioning, I can at least use that framework as a reference to see, okay, how do I need to navigate, right? The other thing which I think both Carlos and Theodore you mentioned, which is, at some points it felt like the book is really written for someone entering at a middle management or a senior management level. Do agree with that, especially when you look at examples like forming an entire organization on your own. But at least in my experience, when I look at a couple of last 2 projects that I've worked on, having a business case of my own and building the team from scratch, I also went through a similar process, of course, not building a team of 100 people, but at least, working more closely with the other organization stakeholders. It sort of put those things into context as well, like where do you look at the team's composition, and typically these are things which we don't do as PMs on a day-to-day basis, but at least I got some exposure which feels a lot more relevant after we do this, right? Those are the few points, and I think someone also mentioned about creating a balance, which is also I think, final chapter of the book. which also resonated because especially when you're working on these new products or even, transitioning from a completely different background, it's sometimes, sort of blurs the line between how you prioritize things and where do you balance your personal life, professional life. So all of those things definitely resonated with me as well. Really like those parts.
Nice. Thanks for sharing. So someone else wants to share maybe their main takeaways or what they found useful or maybe not that useful?
I can go next if nobody's.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. As for me, it was like, I think most so for me it was like a struggle to start a book. I don't know, it just was not the right time, anything. And I was like, oh, I wish I like started reading it like a year ago when I started a new position. It would be so much, in time and things like this. And then actually what I did, I started to read the parts which I thought would bring more value to me. So I started to read it like in a weird order. And funny thing is, like, I picked up things which were actually in time. And then it was much easier for me to grasp everything else in the book. So one of the things I really liked, and it was like kind of aha moment for me, was about like building a relationship with your manager. It was about like, it's 100% your responsibility. So don't assume, like, be surprised, pleasantly surprised they will meet you halfway, but don't expect it to happen. And that was like, for me, it was like, oh, okay. Sometimes you need to make an extra mile. And I still think I'm questioning a lot if it's a cultural thing or not, because in my experience, working with different people, it would very much depend like on the cultural background of the person. So for me, I would normally I would expect like people meeting me halfway. But then that's why I'm actually like, I'm curious of your experience, guys. And if the book is kind of representing kind of some certain culture, or it's more like majority of, how to say, majority of, how do you say this word? Like realistical experiences or something. But yeah. And other than that, like I really like the parts with questions, like when you just go ahead and ask yourself those like list of questions. That was very like, I think it would be useful to get back to it and actually, read through these parts when it's actually the most valuable to you. Yeah, super interesting. That's it for me.
What about you, Carlos?
Yeah, I mean, I really like that part also with the questions, as it was just mentioned. I think especially like, it at some point it talks like these are the kind of 5 different conversations you should have with your team, right? So like what is their style? What are the expectations? Resources, maybe not much personal development, the situation, right? Which at least these ones, as I mentioned, I read the book first time a couple of years ago. And this I have done every time I've moved to a new team at Booking. I always sit down with each person individually and just ask them, what are your expectations from me as a product manager, right? And how can I help you? And it has, helped me a lot because, maybe you expect everyone to know what you do or how you can help. But sometimes you can also, be surprised with like how people expect you to help them or the team, right? And the same with the manager, with the style. Like, I've had managers that maybe they saw like, not having a one-to-one was like okay or not needed. Maybe some like, want to have, I don't know, like too often. So I think discussing those things up front sort of like makes it clear, right? And I don't know, my experience, it has only helped improve that relationship with my manager, with my team, as I said, and also with the style, and I think maybe now more importantly with as well we work from home. Like I switched teams, last year, I think. So I met the people from my team only once, like face to face, that we went for dinner. So discussing like what is your style for working, like to the developers or the designers, as in like, would you like me, if I want to ask you, is it okay if I send you a chat, or would you prefer to set up a call, or should we just wait until stand up, I don't know, etc. Discussing those things and agreeing, I think it has just helped us to collaborate, to work better overall.
One of the things to mention that was a kind of wow effect for me is that in the book it was written kind of as a reminder for you that if you got promoted, it doesn't mean that you have to do what you did before, but like 2 times harder, 2 times more. And that's actually time for you and time for you to actually start doing completely different things, or like start working more with people rather than contributing as an individual owner, or think more about team rather than just coding things alone, basically. So that's something that I should have read before, of course, and I should keep in mind in the future as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I agree with that. That was actually one of the things that I took away as well, is we often have a tendency to rely a lot on our experience from previous jobs. And sometimes we don't realize what that may sound like when we come to a new job and we're constantly saying, well, in my previous job, we did this, or before we did this, and it sort of undermines and it may cause, well, I mean, because you really should be looking on how to do things in this job and use your experience, but don't make it so obvious and don't refer to it all the time. Creates kind of a blind spot, I think, for you as well, because you're not really embracing the new position.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. So someone else has like a, I don't know, insights or something that they found like, very helpful from the book?
I think some of the context in which you can use the book in as well, like I think the timing of the books is interesting because we're all going into the new year, even though it doesn't feel like it. And you could treat some of the things that are mentioned in the book to like, how are you going to approach this new year? How are you going to turn a new leaf? I know the book drills in kind of, and the author as well talks about like, once you've set your expectations, it's going to be very hard to change that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't give for like, okay, if you want to reset your position in an organization, it's also a way to kind of approach it. It also, like, this is a framework that you can do to kind of reinvent yourself in an organization as well. So if you have made those mistakes in the past, this is how you recover from it.
Yeah. And then did someone, I was also curious because, it is very detailed and covers a lot of different things. So I was also thinking like, is there something or like any other learning or aspect that you thought it was not covered with this sort of like, these are the things you should do in the first 3 months?
Do you mean it was not covered in the book?
Yeah, or something that maybe, you personally found very useful doing when you were transitioning to another role, but that you maybe saw like, okay, that the book didn't cover or didn't mention this point that I think is really important.
I think, one thing that I think Arthur kind of mentioned this, and also it was mentioned by Alena, I think, that she started reading a book already being in the position, like after 1 year, and you start reading it in the middle. I think that's kind of good. But what if, for example, you're already in the position and you made the mistakes already that has been written in the book, and you need to actually solve them, but you lost reputation and or people like not trust you. Maybe there should be something like there is a recovery action plan. Or like, of course, you can leave and go to another team, and try the book again. Maybe, there should be something that should allow you to recover back.
That would be a funny approach, like try 90 days, fail, then go to another company, try 90 days, fail. Like, but the 5th time you'll get it, I guess.
One of the questions that I wanted to ask, especially in the book, it's written a lot about horizontal connections, but it's very important to keep your peers around you because you can share a lot of knowledge. And I found that because of all the situations, I stopped going drinking coffee in the morning, for example, with my colleagues, or just accidentally meet people in lift or somewhere, like in bars. What do you do in your team to keep this connection? Like, do you have regular meetings? Or do you make online coffee, or you play Among Us, for example, with your team? Just interested to know what's happening in other companies.
Yeah. Does someone have, because I think I have done not that good on that aspect. I don't know if someone has tips for that.
I think here it really much depends on the team. This is where like it doesn't happen accidentally, right? Like, so you need to set time aside, and if people are not really motivated, you might be pinging them like, oh, let's grab a coffee. It will never happen. So unfortunately, there is like, as much as you can do, you're not always in control of that. So as much like, I think at a certain point, a lot of people got bored of like sitting at home, and like this casual conversation started to happen much more often. But still, again, very much depends on the personality. So I found myself like chatting with some people, which would be like client side, and just discussing music accidentally, and that like would kind of bring a relationship in a total, like just giving some like bullshit talk or whatever. And with some other colleagues, like which is who are on my team, I would be completely not having even a minute for like whatever conversation, work conversation. So I found it's like if that would be organized, I'm still not convinced if it would help like certain relationship to really like develop in the certain conditions. But yeah, but like from the things which were actually organized, there was like some quizzes and meetups. But again, if you are on the international team in different time zones, it's very hard to find a time which was like convenient for everybody. So it's more like bothering some people than it actually helps. So yeah, that's why.
I'm actually part of a remote team. So the company that I work for is 100% remote, and we have, sorry for the noise. And we have team members all over the world. We have people in Portugal, we have people in the Philippines, and then we're all across the United States. And we make it work by like scheduling time and committing to it. You know, you can't, it's definitely not going to work if you have people who, you know, just don't take that commitment seriously. And so we all put in the effort. So before COVID, we would meet every quarter and like actually get to be in person, and that was really fun too. That just expanded our connection. But in this last year, like our team has grown, and there's people who feel like I've known them my entire life, and I literally have never been in the same room with them. Like we've only been on Zoom. And so one thing that we're going to start doing is a cooking class together. So you can use like your team's skill sets. So our CTO is an amazing chef. He loves to cook. And so we're just all gonna get on Zoom, go into our kitchens. The leadership team is gonna send us like little boxes of all the ingredients. So we're all gonna cook the same thing, and then we're gonna sit down and enjoy a meal together. And then that's like a more elaborate one. That's take time and everything. But on a more regular basis, we have once a month, we have a gaming session in the morning. We're actually going to try Among Us next time, but we've just been playing like Scribble.io and Jackbox games and stuff. There's a lot of free games. Steam, I don't know if any of you guys are gamers, but if you download Steam, there's a lot of free games on there, and you just have to put $5 into the account so you can add other people as friends. So something I did is I just bought a bunch of $5 gift cards and set up accounts for everybody, because I have their emails, and then, you know, password 123, whatever, go change it after I create the account, to try to make it easier for them too, and make people feel like really included. Like, I want you there. I made this account for you. Like, please come. And then another thing I heard was like weekly meetings, and or like if teams are meeting more often together, and we do. So Our business is a little bit different where we implement an operating system called EOS. It's an entrepreneurial operating system. And so from that, we've adopted a few things, and one of them is recurring meetings. So each department has a weekly meeting. And it's not like the entire, it won't be the entire department for some of them, because it also doesn't work if you have way too many people. So you pick the important people that need to be there for the conversation. We go over things like our key metrics, our quarterly goals. We always take to-dos because we try to solve issues together. So we have this portion of the meeting for 60 minutes because it's a 90-minute meeting total once a week. And so we bring issues. Everybody has access to add issues to the list, like whatever it is you want to talk about. If it's an actual problem, or like you found a cool piece of software that you think we should try, whatever it is that you want to talk about and bring up to the team, everybody has the liberty to add to that list. And then what we end up doing is taking a bunch of to-dos to try to solve those things. And that's been really helpful for us to just like maintain accountability, transparency, and develop trust in each other. So I can trust my team completely, and not everybody. I definitely, there's always going to be people who don't, follow things the way that everybody else is. They're kind of the black sheep in the herd, if that's what you want to say. So I don't want to make it sound like we're all perfect and everything, but there are people who I can completely count on and know that if I say something that they're going to go do it, or if there's something urgent, like I can put my trust in them. So I feel like having all of those things like around our team is what helps us build trust with each other, so that way we're a more cohesive and collaborative team. And hopefully we can turn that around into a software. And
Nice. Yeah, because I personally have found it, like sometimes I would only talk with the team like during the stand-up, and then it also feels weird sometimes that you just go straight into like, okay, what's the update, and then, but at the same time, maybe you don't know them that much, so it doesn't go that much after, like, or besides that, how's it going, or how was the weekend?
Something that we did in the very beginning, like when we were all getting to know each other, we did like a story sharing time. So we literally just blocked off like 2 hours. I think we ended up going to like 3 hours so that everybody could go around and just introduce themselves. And that actually ended up giving me connections with other people that I probably would have never had a connection with. Like they're on the DevOps team. I'm a product manager. We're on the same team. I talk to them, but we don't really need each other very much, So like there's not a lot of that going on. So when we were in a story sharing session and they liked the same music, and then I said something in my portion that like sparked with them, and now all of a sudden we have all this common ground, and we can chat with each other. It just makes it feel more comfortable. And then something that you said, Carlos, about jumping into like a daily stand-up. We take 5 to 10 minutes before every meeting to just talk. So what we do is share a personal best and a professional best. That's what we try to do. Or sometimes if that feels boring, because that's what we normally do, we'll throw in like a random question, like what's the most embarrassing fashion trend that you participated in? I found out our delivery manager was emo. Like that's hilarious.
Nice.
So
nice.
I hope that can help you guys.
Yeah, well, at least you gave me a lot of ideas. Yes, thank you. I don't know if someone else has any other like tips or something for. Yeah, I think this is very important, right? How do you get to know your team more while being remote? And I don't know, because indeed, I felt myself not doing such a good job there. Something we started doing with the team that I also found very good is after or at the end of the stand-up, we would all like say how our mood was, like from 1 to 5, and then 1 being very good, for example. And it was good because, well, sometimes or most of the time it would be like 1, good, because this, so they would also tell you a bit, but it also helped me with, sometimes they would say, 4, because, I'm feeling bad because this and that. So you also get to to know a bit more. So, maybe you will change the communication, or maybe you will also try to help them, or just understanding. So that, at least personally, that helped me with the team. Yeah, I don't know if someone else has other tips or things they would like to share.
Great. I think emotional health is something, it's always really, really important. But, when you ask someone their mood, people have a tendency, I think it's just really, really important right now, I think.
Yeah.
Always important, particularly important, I think, right now with everything.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I've done and I've seen done as well is I worked with a cross-functional and cross-international team. So we had, maybe it was a small team, but we maybe had folks from 5 different countries. And what we would do in the beginning, as we were waiting for people to join the meeting, we would you had to organize it. Again, it takes that commitment, right?
Yeah.
But every meeting, someone would send in music that meant something to them, right? And then they would speak to why that song or that music meant something to them. And so it was a way and we got lots of music from different cultures and different places that we wouldn't, local bands in like Austin, or, we had some folks from Bolivia, and they would share some of the music that they liked. They had people in the office were in bands, and so they would share some of their own music. It was a great way to use music to kind of bring everyone together too. And it was cool to listen to the different kinds of music. So it was
nice.
Yeah, from a book perspective, it was also written this part about managing yourself and keeping a balance. Yeah, I think it's kind of important now, especially if you feel that you're burning out and you don't have everything good happening in your family or with your partner. It actually impacts how you work, what you do, and I think other people can feel it. And I think next time when I work with a colleague, and of course colleague might have different life situation, especially if he's locked because of lockdown and he has like 2 kids. Yeah, maybe I don't need to ask a lot from him, and actually more understand and support him as much as I can.
Yeah. The other thing that I also found very interesting from the book is it says, like one of the things that you want to do at the beginning when trying to meet the people in your team outside is also like, how do you test people's judgment? But I also realize that, yes, that's important, right? Because you're going to be meeting a lot of people. Everyone's going to be giving you like their opinions or their input on something. But then, of course, you need to, ideally, them, so then you also know how to interpret their opinions, right? And so I found that to be very important, right? Like how at the beginning you can, when you don't know the person, you can judge that their judgment. And he gives like an example of what you can do, right? So he says, you can ask people to give an opinion or a prediction on something that you will get the feedback quite soon, right? So for example, if there's a football match tonight, you can ask, which team do you think is going to win tonight? And then after the person says team A, then start asking, well, why do you think your prediction is correct? So that then the person would start explaining how he makes that call, and then you could sort of like start judging better how the person approaches something, right? Or even if someone doesn't want to commit, then that is already also giving you some tips. So I found that quite useful and also quite actionable, right? That's something that you can do at the beginning when meeting people to see how everyone approaches or gives different opinions. Reading more. We do music rotation for one of the stand-ups as well. Example questions. How are you feeling right now? What is energizing you this week? Someone else has other like tips of ideas of how you get increase that trust in your team, or maybe when you start working with someone new in your team as well. Because I think that was also one part, like one of the chapters, right? Like how can you accelerate everyone? That when I first read it, I was like, oh, maybe this is more if I'm managing someone, right? Or if I, managing the product manager, for example. But then it's not really true, right? Like anyways, you can like accelerate your team, even if you don't manage them directly. But of course, for that, I think you also need to form that trust and understand really what their personal goals are, etc.
I actually disagree with the idea that if your manager meets you halfway, then it's like it's a miracle or it's something good. I
Yeah.
actually think that if you have a team, I mean, even regardless of whether you're coming into a position where you have an established team that you're inheriting or you're establishing a team, it's very important because at the end of the day, we've all been there. I mean, you look up to your manager, right? You make sure like you're in good standing with him, you're aligned. Um, Basically, you're helping him achieve his mission, so that basically you can also kind of be a contributor in the big picture and everything. So I personally think that it's very important for the manager to actually go all the way with people. Maybe
Yeah.
not all the way, but at least secure them to begin with, right? Because make sure that basically, okay, like as a team member, you want to be sure that you actually have a team member with you, right? You have somebody that's with you on the team, and I think that's very important because otherwise, first of all, in terms of morale, in terms of confidence, in terms of alignment, all of these are going to suffer. So I think it's actually very important. Maybe like fine if you go into the company and your manager is not like that, yes, but that should not be kind of the standard for how
Yeah.
you should treat your subordinates.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with what the author says in the book, right? That at the end it's sort of like your responsibility. But I also agree that at the end, if my manager like wouldn't reach out to me on the first week or like in the first, I don't know, few weeks, like yeah, I would reach out, right? Of course, to get to meet him or her. But yeah, wouldn't be the same feeling, right? As the person making sure that you're on board correctly and that he or she welcomes you and introduces you everyone, etc. So yeah, I agree on that.
But the thing is, like, a question or like that I would like to know if it's just the European, like we're used to kind of European way of things where everybody is like kind of on the same level. And this actually has to do with more hierarchical structure where kind of there is like your boss, not the manager, or like a boss kind of concept. I'm curious if that's the case here.
Yeah.
And also like one good phrase about my manager just got to my head is like when people leave the company, they don't leave the job, they leave the manager, right? So like it's a nice way when you think about it, when like manager like meets you halfway or goes all the way, but the fact is there are probably a lot of managers which don't.
Yeah.
And this is like an interesting.
Yeah. Because on your experience, it was more like I don't know how you say, like a cold relationship, let's say, or.
No, it's more like, from my understanding, it's you need like what was hard that like you need to put more effort in building it actually. So if it's like again, it's up to the personality, and then right, like so if that other person or it's like first time experience or something like this, you cannot expect them to be like a team builder or things like this. So you just need to kind of think that this is all on you, and then it's easier to kind of grab. You don't expect like, yeah, it would be nice, like but something like this.
Yeah. Someone wants to share like how they have found those, like first days of interaction with their manager or tips.
I'm curious if you guys have one-on-ones and have like same page meetings, and if they're often like, so for us, some people have them once a week and other people have them like twice a month, but either way, you always have a call with your manager to just be on the same page of, what's going on and if you need anything or if they need to cascade something to you.
Yeah. I do have it. But yeah, I think also that the approach sometimes is different, right? Like, so some managers would indeed dedicate more time into, I don't know, how are you? And then, you start telling them about your brother. And then on the next one, you're like, oh, how's your brother? How's your family? And, you could spend like 10, 15 minutes just like random talk. And then like, okay, how's progress with this? Some others indeed are more like, so where's the progress with this thing? How can I help you? But like very work related. But yeah, I have it. I have one-on-ones once a week. We also discuss like, alignment or progress. And then of course, always like highlighting if there are any blockers or I don't know. I also personally always like to get their feedback with, like, you know, how things are approaching or what we are envisioning to do, just to make sure that, you know, that they are on board with me. And then, yeah, also I like to tell them that, you know, I also want to feel that confidence that I can highlight with you any red flags or something, like, you know, as early as possible, so that then it wouldn't be a surprise only when something goes wrong, but rather that, you know, you can help me in, like, thinking how we can avoid some bad things happening, or what workarounds we can do, right? And especially I remember now when I joined Booking, for example, as I mentioned, it's a huge company, right? So there's a lot of people, a lot of product managers, a lot of teams. So what I found really useful on my manager at that point was that he would tell me, you know, like, oh, you should really go talk with this person, you know, or, oh, you are thinking about, I don't know, running this experiment with prices. Oh, you should really go talk with this person. Or even before, you know, like, okay, you are going to be looking a lot of related to this topic with, I don't know, this thing. So you should really set up just 1 hour with this person, grab a coffee, and, like, you know, start establishing that relationship as well. So then when you have a specific question or something, then you already know them, right? So it's not just that, you know, you only ask someone to ask for a favor, but you already had that connection. I don't know, yeah, how is it for the others? What's their experience?
So I also have one-on-one, or like we call it face-to-face, with my manager, with my team lead. But also I have face-to-face maybe once in 2 weeks or once in months with a manager's manager, so even a higher level, because I can see it's much more useful for growth, much more useful, because a person who is manager's manager, she or he knows much more what's happening across whole set of teams in whole department, and usually he or she might support you much better, especially if you would like to grow, rather than asking feedback from your team lead, from your manager, just because your manager manages on a bit lower levels and you would like to grow. And that I found personally very important. And that's what I usually do. Yeah, it's not often, and it's not that I'm talking about small things, like lower level things, because I usually talk about it with my. But we think about big plans and big changes, and yeah, it's much more important for growth. I found it personally.
Yeah.
My personal experience has been that I basically had my first one-on-one with my manager 1 year after I joined the company.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah. And it's not because I wasn't close to him. On the contrary, we became very close friends very early on. But actually that kind of, I actually asked for the one-on-one because I wanted him to give me kind of an objective review. I knew that basically I was doing a good job and okay, like we're delivering on time and everything, but objectively speaking, I'm sure there were certain things that he saw I could do better, but was not saying anything about them. Mm-hmm. And part of that has to do with the management style of your manager. Some of them might be kind of very like conflict or confrontation averse, or don't want to like give you a bad review. So if that's the case for you, I would like highly encourage you to just ask for it, like just ask for feedback. And yeah, I mean, I also think it depends on the size of the company and how much of a practice it is.
Yeah. What about the others? I'm curious to see how they manage that relationship with their manager. Okay.
Yeah, I can go. So again, really, my experiences vary depending on which team I was working on. I've had instances where I literally used to meet with my manager once every month, but that's also because his reporting line was quite broad, like 20 people reporting into him. The current team, however, that I'm working on, I meet with my manager once every week. That's a scheduled catch-up. Of course, at least I have a good working relationship with them, which means I can pretty much set up another catch-up within the same week if I have to. So it's not limited to the one catch-up that is already pre-scheduled. And in terms of the range of topics that we can discuss, indeed, there is the sort of informal part of the catch-up where we just try to understand, okay, how are we doing personally, especially at a time like this. Usually followed by some sort of high-level updates on where I am, any blockers I'm running into, followed by just soundboarding of ideas, especially because as product managers, a big part of our job is also just ideating and thinking about what next for the product. And sometimes it's hard to simply take those ideas back to your team and see how much they can expand on that, elaborate on that. So my manager also, acts as a soundboard for me when I need that. So it's, the range of topics vary, but on a high level, these are the 3 areas we try to touch upon, right? And I think, Taimur, I think you mentioned it's good to also have a catch up with maybe the manager of your manager or someone who's in a more strategic role. This helps indeed in 2 ways. One, it creates a lot more visibility for you as well, but also usually, again, depends on what level you're operating as a PM, how much exposure you have, how much responsibility you have. But getting exposure to people who are in more senior management positions really tells you what the overarching vision is, how different pieces connect together. So that also eventually informs the product decisions you'll be making at your level. So talking to both my manager and his manager, but also on a regular cadence.
Yeah. And for example, do you have that meeting with the manager of your manager, like also like a schedule once, I don't know, every quarter or so, or is it more like on demand?
I don't, for me, it's more on demand. I had one today. I just sent him an invite like half an hour before. But what I do know that my manager does the same thing with his manager's manager, which is a more scheduled catch up. So it's more of preference and what works for both individuals. But I do feel that in practice, it helps to keep regular interaction with these senior stakeholders.
Yeah, indeed. That's a good point. I on the current department where I am, I have had it more like me requesting it. Like for example, we were starting a new topic, and I was okay to my manager, like, okay, it's good that we're both aligned, but I would also like to present this to like a higher level, just to make sure that at that level we are also aligned, and then see if there are any risks maybe that are at a higher level that you can see. But I have also had like a scheduled meetings this with manager, and indeed I found them to be very useful, because the discussions by nature are just going to be very different, right? And maybe the things that are worrying you, like are completely different from the things that might be asked or raised during that meeting. And then of course for visibility, the thing of course it's great, but
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I was there is a situation in the book where one person is promoted to be a manager of the former peers, and like there was an example about like how this person focuses on the specific tasks that they used to do, right? Like exactly as someone mentioned earlier, that you need to think about like what do you need to do in the new job. I was wondering if anybody had such an experience, and if they found it difficult to kind of step up and see like what are the new goals now in this situation, rather than like focusing on what I can do or what I'm used to doing. Anyone?
I can share one. It's a slightly different situation. So I used to be an engineer, a developer who moved to a product manager position within the same team. So the dynamics were slightly similar, because the very same people who used to, let's say, review my code, all of a sudden were developers on the team, and I was sort of shaping the overarching position, the overarching vision, right? So it's not like they were reporting to me, but I was still more responsible for the direction in which you're headed and trying to influence the strategic decision. The challenge that I personally faced was indeed one that how do you sort of rewire that relationship, that you're no longer involved in micro execution details, but more focused on influencing these people to still be able to understand the vision and work towards that. And another reason why rewiring this relationship is important, because also for the other person, he or she is thinking that they hold the same relationship with you as before, which means they would expect you to constantly be involved in similar types of discussions as you did before. So the dynamics change a bit. But again, in this case, the reporting line did not change. It was more like a matrix setup. But yeah, that's the case with me.
I had a situation like that, and for me, I was the software expert. So we're a small company, so a position was kind of made up for me when I outgrew my other position. So as the team was growing, and I became like the tier 2 support, and started building out that team, and then became the software expert, and then I became the product manager. So what was hard for me was letting go of everything that I was doing, because there was nobody else on. Like, I was a one woman team, so I was part of the support team, but there was nobody else that was working with me on certain things. And so what helped me was having trust in this person that came on the team. So I started having him shadow me and come to my meetings, work with me. So when I was like responding to people, you know, he would be in Zoom with me. I shared my screen. We're talking through like what we're doing. And that was hard because it slowed me down, obviously. And I wasn't as productive as I normally was. And so that was starting to bother me a little bit, but I kept pushing through and spending that time with him. And then at a certain point, I was just like, all right, well, I'm done. Like, you can handle everything here. And so I was able to fully transition, because I was trying to juggle both. I was like part-time software expert and part-time product manager, and it was more like full-time product manager and part-time on support. So it was a lot. And that was like 1 quarter. It was 1 quarter of hell, and like, well, you know, hell, just a lot of time and like pushing through the just wanting to stop. Like, all right, I'm just going to do this really quick because I can just do it by myself. It'll take me like 10 minutes. If I do it with him, it's going to take me like 30. So just pushing through those thoughts and like staying the course. And now I'm free of that, and they're completely fine on their own, and rarely need me anymore. And so that was really great. I feel like letting go of that was more possible because I had put in the work to train somebody to do those things the way that I think they should be done, or, you know, my right way.
Yeah, nice. Someone else has a related experience?
Yeah, hi. I had an experience like that when I first started with this company that I was working at, and basically I started in the kind of product support area, and our manager had left, and he was very hands-on with triaging support cases, production cases, and kind of, you know, getting into the weeds of issues. And so I think the team was really accustomed to someone like that. Like, you know, it's like you get accustomed to a certain type of manager. And so when he left, the position opened, and several of us, the team, applied, and I was able to get the position. So of course there's always tension initially when you get the position and others don't. But also I think having to change the tone of, you know, there's always going to be some, you know, skepticism about what a manager is going to do, right? And what I wanted to emphasize was that I'm not going to be a carbon copy of manager previous, but rather I wanted to look at where the improvements were needed, what processes were needed, like where we move that would make things better rather than just keep them the same. And so it's kind of just stepping away from my old role completely and keep on stating the why I needed to do that made a difference, because I think they really realize once you start producing other things that make the team's life easier, like creating processes or documentation or whatever, that's kind of, there was a gap before, then you really kind of have to pull away from getting in there and doing what you did before to make sure that they see you as that person, as that resource, rather than just another colleague.
Yeah. But The thing, there is also something mentioned on the book as well with this, when you, maybe there was a previous manager or boss and then you take on that role, right? That, of course, not to not point out like what the person was doing wrong or bad, right? But rather indeed, like you mentioned, right? How are the processes right now? What can we improve? What should we keep working on? But I think it's also important when you join that new team, as part of asking, what are the expectations from everyone from you. Also, like things I found always useful to ask, what things were working here, maybe with the previous product manager, so what things do you think we should not change for sure, or what things, maybe we should pay more attention, that we should update or eliminate or edit in any way. Nice. I'm just conscious of the time. Should we, for the ones that have the book, you can show it, then we can take a screenshot of with the book as a picture, and then we can close. Someone, Julia, Susan, do you have the book as well, or?
Yeah, I have the.
I do. I have the electronic version. I'm trying to get to the cover so you can see it. There you go.
All right, Akash, do you have it, or?
I don't know if you can see it real well. It's kind of.
The Kindle version.
Okay, no worries.
Okay. Got the wrong page. Hold on. There you go.
All right, I think Viviana.
Stop. What? I'm ruining our picture. Quick.
Okay, one. Yeah.
Whoa. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
All right.
No, it doesn't stay, but it's there.
Nice. All right. Let me say it. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone. I hope you got some nice insights. I definitely got some things that I didn't got myself from reading, so it was very useful. And thanks everyone. Hope to see you on the next month. As I said, we have a schedule with the author. So looking forward to see you, and thank you.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.